How to start your own business. When Gustavus Swift, a youngster in knee breeches, dressed and sold his first calf to the fisher folk of Cape Cod, he laid the foundation of the largest meat packing business in the world. The desire to make money, to have a business of his own, was a driving force in the makeup of young Swift. In Barnstable he was known as a chap with a lot of get up and go to him. So it was not surprising that when he felt the desire to make money, he didn't waste his time wishing, but took his courage in his two hands and started in the dressed beef business in his dad's backyard. No doubt there were other young men in Barnstable who wanted to make money too. But while they were wondering how they could make it, Gus Swift cut the Gordian knot. It meant work for him. It was not a pleasant way to make money. There was the possibility of his not being able to sell his calf after he had dressed it. He had to walk miles in order to market his veal, for Cape Cod in those days was a spread out sort of place. But Swift didn't care. He wanted the money. The work, the walk-in and the adventure were fun. And because he regarded making money as fun instead of work, he later was able to come to Chicago and start the great Swift packing business. How different from the average young man of today. They are usually more interested in having a good time than they are establishing themselves in a business of their own. Being in business is so confining. So they concentrate on enjoying themselves, serene in their philosophy that tomorrow is another day. If these people, and they are not all young people either, worked half-as hard at making money as they do at having a good time, they would be rich. Then there are people who are willing to work and do work hard at making money, but they are not successful because they lack a target. They are like the chap who hunts big game with a shotgun. They do a lot of shooting, but they bag very little game. Next to being willing to pay the price of success in hard work, the most important thing is to have a definite, clear-cut objective. Since it is necessary to crawl before you walk, it is suggested that you make that objective $1,000. Now you may say, why stop at $1,000? Why not make it $1,00,000? While there is merit in the idea of setting up your sights high, there is such a thing as shooting at the moon. Set an objective that you know you can attain. Having attained your first objective, you can then consider what your next objective will be. Remember that after you start in business, you are going to run afoul of many discouragements. While it looks easy now, it may not 2 months from now. If you have as an objective a mark that you can almost reach out and touch, it will help you to carry through this period of discouragement. The story of money. Since this is a book about making money, and money will be mentioned frequently, it might be to get it fixed in our minds what money is. Money itself is no good. You cannot eat it. You cannot wear it. You cannot use it for much of anything except to exchange for things that you need. That is why it is called a medium of exchange. Money can be anything. In the early days of the West, whiskey was used for money. A farm was advertised as being worth so many barrels of whiskey. Beads were used by the Indians as a medium of exchange. The island of Manhattan was bought from the Indians for a few beads. The first use of coins as money antedates Christ. To save people the trouble of having to weigh each coin to determine its value, the government stamped them with its mark. They could then be passed in exchange without using scales, although even today the banks in Great Britain weigh all gold coins presented to them to determine the wear. One of the first countries to use credit money as a medium of exchange was England. People took their silver to the exchequer and received in exchange a tally stick. Notches were cut in this stick according to the number of pounds of silver loaned to the government. These tally sticks were about 3/4 of an inch square and about 10 inches long. After being notched, the stick was split in half, and one half was hung in the exchequer, and the other half given to the person loaning the silver. At first, these tally sticks were used as receipts only, but after a time people exchanged them for things they needed. Then the exchequer issued tally sticks notched for even number of pounds of silver, 1 pound, 5 pounds, 20 pounds, and so forth. These were much more convenient than carrying around the actual silver. Eventually, the tally stick was superseded by paper receipts, the forerunner of our present paper money. The big advantage of the tally stick was that no two sticks were notched in the same way, so when the owner of a tally stick called at the exchequer to collect the notching on his tally stick was certified to his ownership of the silver. It remained for John Law, the eminent Scotch banker, to carry money to its next stage of development. Pieces of paper secured by various kinds of assets, and too often by nothing at all. It is important to know how our present system of money grew, so you will understand its true place in our scheme of business. When you determine to make $1,000, you are not thinking of 10 $100 bills so much as you are thinking in terms of what you can buy with those bills. And the same is true of those from whom you get money. You both talk about money as though money was all important, but you are exchanging services. So your success in making your first $1,000 will depend upon your ability to make or do something of definite value to society, which people want more than they want the money it will cost them. In the years gone by, there was money in making and selling carriages. Based on figures alone, it might seem like a good thing to start in the carriage business. But even the most casual investigation will show the folly of doing so. The public today needs low-priced airplanes, automobiles operated with fuel oil, and similar things. So other things being equal, if two men started in business today, one making carriages and the other making diesel automobiles, it is probable that while the man making carriages might make a bare living out of his business, he would never make any big money. He might be every bit as smart, even a better businessman, but society is not willing to exchange money for better horse-drawn carriages. But it will for automobiles which will run 100 miles to the gallon of crude oil.
The first step in making money. It is easier to make money in some localities than in others. There is, for example, the Ogden hardware merchant who became rich selling shovels during the California gold rush. He was quick to see that with people pouring into the West digging everywhere for gold, they would need a lot of shovels. So he wrote back east and bought all the shovels he could get. It was no trick to sell them. All he had to do was to advertise that he had shovels to sell, and the prospectors took them away from him at fancy prices. That kind of merchandising does not require any skill. Neither does it require any knowledge of business principles. But the gold rush is over. The West has been settled. To be successful in business today, you need more than a stock of merchandise. You have to know how to sell goods at a profit. 9 out of every 10 men who start in business today fail because they cannot measure up to those requirements, especially the last part of the formula. So the first step in starting a business of your own is to know something about it. You need not know all about it, but you must know something about it. Fortunately, much of the knowledge you need may be found in books and trade periodicals. The manufacturers of the equipment which you will need to get started are usually able to furnish you with essential information. The federal and state governments have publications of value to you. This is all experience which you can buy very inexpensively, yet it is experience that has cost others much time and money. So read everything published about the business you intend to start to get the combined experience of others and begin your plans where they left off. You will find many people who will laugh at the idea of learning how to make money in books. They will tell you that business success depends upon inherent trading ability and action. They will cite men who never read a book in their lives and still made lots of money in business. Do not be influenced by these views. No man ever started in business for himself who did not shortcut the time it took him to become established by reading about what others had done. When you read a book about business, it is just as though you were invited into the home of the author and sat down with him and talked over your problems. Only those who think they know all there is to be known and more besides consider such an exchange of ideas foolish. Why spend hundreds of dollars to find out that a business idea or plan will not work when another who has tried the plan tells you in a book or a magazine article exactly why it is not a good idea? At the end of this volume, you will find references to books, pamphlets and magazines which may be consulted for further information on some business problem. Consult those references. They may save you much grief and loss. But understand this, reading alone won't enable you to succeed in business. The best idea ever conceived for making money is utterly worthless until somebody puts it to work. You no doubt know many brilliant men fellows with more ideas for making money than a dog has fleas, yet who never get enough money together to buy a second-hand automobile. What is wrong with them? They are probably like the inventor who never stops inventing long enough to make and sell his invention. One good idea at work making money is worth 1,000 ideas just buzzing around in the head of the smartest man in America.
How to begin making money? The way to begin making money is to begin. That may sound foolish, but the hundreds of thousands of people in this country who would like to make a lot of money are not making it because they are waiting for this, that, or the other thing to happen. Some are waiting for business to get better. Others are waiting for the right moment. For the most part, however, they are waiting for no reason in the world except that it is easier to put off until tomorrow those things which should be done today. Business is a game of put and take. You can't take out until you put in. People often put off starting in business for themselves because they cannot see clearly ahead. So they go to friends for advice. It is characteristic of people when advising friends to be super conservative. Benjamin Franklin, you will remember, asked his friends what they thought of his chance to succeed in publishing a newspaper in Philadelphia. Without exception, they advised against it on the grounds that there were already too many newspapers. They did not take into consideration Franklin's ability nor his capacity to succeed. Had they stopped to analyze the situation, they would have advised him to go ahead by all means. The fact that there were so many newspapers made the opportunity for a better newspaper that much greater. As a rule, most of the advice to those contemplating a business venture is don't. If you ask the advice of enough people, you are almost sure to end up by doing nothing. The only person really qualified to advise you as to what you can do is yourself. You know yourself better than anyone else does. You and you alone know how determined you are to make a success of the undertaking. And in the last analysis, about 90% of being successful in business is that indefinable thing which, for lack of a better name, we call guts. If you have the guts to work 18 hours a day if need be, if you have the guts to go without pocket money in order to carry your business over the rough spots, if you have the guts to stick when others say you are just wasting your time, it is a pretty good bet that you will succeed, because that is the stuff from which success is made. So do not be over concerned with the real and imaginary difficulties that loom up so large at the outset. It is not necessary that you see the harbor at the other end of your course before setting sail. If you sail straight and keep moving, you will get to your destination. But you won't get there, or anywhere, unless you start. Once you have started, most of the difficulties will give way before your enthusiasm and determination to succeed. You may end up in an entirely different business from the one you started. You may have to change your plans a number of times. But what does that matter? The all-important thing is that you have started. In the following pages you will read about hundreds of people who, like yourself, had the urge to make $1,000. Some earned it making things and others selling things. Some made it quickly and others slowly. But you will find one thing true of every story in this book. Each person began making money when he or she started. Had these people not come to a decision and started in a business of their own, they would never have made any money. Their success began with their decision to start, and so will yours. Raising money to start a business. Many a man with a good idea hesitates to start in business because he lacks capital. Capital is important, and it cannot be denied that a lack of it is one of the principal reasons for business failures. However, lack of capital need not hold back a determined man. The old saying, where there is a will, there is a way, still applies. Sometimes a money-making idea is so good that men who have capital will stake you in starting your business. Many famous businesses were started in just this way. Hires root beer is a case in point. Charles E. Hires discovered the formula for his root beer in a farmhouse back in 1877. 1. Morning George W. Childs, publisher of the Philadelphia Public Ledger, sat down beside M.R. Hires in a streetcar. M.R. Hires, he said, why don't you advertise that root beer of yours? How can I advertise? Said M.R. Hires. I haven't any money. Advertise to get money. Come around to the ledger office and I'll tell the bookkeeper not to send you any bills for advertising until you ask for them. M.R. Hires was a man of action. He knew that without venture, nothing could be gained. He accepted M.R. Child's offer. An inch advertisement ran daily. From that time on in the public ledger. Slowly but steadily, it began to pull. When at last the profits from the advertising were sufficient to justify M.R. Hires asking for his bill, it amounted to $700. But it was a good investment. It provided the capital upon which the Hires business was founded. For 10 years M.R. Hires plowed all his profits back into advertising, keeping only enough out for a bare living for himself. He became one of the largest national advertisers in the country, with annual appropriations amounting to more than $600,000. When a product has good repeating qualities, it is sometimes possible to interest advertising agents in extending credit in order to get a business started. If an idea offers mass advertising opportunities, some of the larger agencies may accept stock in a company to offset the advertising bills. Among the well-known products now on the market which have been started in this way, or which are partly owned by advertising agencies are Pepsodent, Barbasol, Bonami, Sapolio, Palmolive soap and Van Camp's beans. It will be noticed that all these products have two things in common. L. They are articles which can be sold to the general public, and though they repeat quickly. This last qualification is important because generally you have to spend an amount equal to the selling price of the first purchase in order to induce a person to try a product. Your only chance, therefore, of making a profit on your advertising is the repeat factor of the article. It must have real merit, and it must have an outstanding feature that will lend itself to mass exploitation, either over the air or through the press. Another way to finance a business is to organize a stock company and sell the stock to friends and local businessmen who have surplus funds to invest in. Following this plan, it is important to keep the voting control yourself. Otherwise, you may find that after you have the business out of the red and into a money-making position, you have been eased out of the picture. Incorporate your company for twice as much as the capital required and keep 51% of the common or voting stock in payment for the idea or the patents or whatever it is that makes the business attractive. It is better, however, to finance a business out of its earnings on a pay-as-you-go basis rather than to organize a stock company. The reasons for this are: 1. When you sell stock to others, you are in effect taking them in as partners. The more partners you have, the less control you will have over the policies of the business, and the greater the danger of dissension. Though minority stockholders, unless they are employees, contribute little to a business beyond the initial capital, there is no reason why they should be given 49% of the profits. They are entitled to a rental for the use of their money and the risk they take, but in the case of a successful business, common stock dividends often represent a return of several 100% a year. The best way of raising the money you need to start your business, and the way which in the long run will prove most profitable to you, is to find something that you can sell. Let the commissions accumulate in a bank until the balance is enough to enable you to start in a small way. Then, by the simple process of putting back the profits into expansion, as MR hires did, let your business grow. In this way, you will keep control and will not have to share an unduly large proportion of its earnings with others. In this connection, you will find on pages 341 to 359 of this book a number of suggested items which you can sell if you lack the necessary capital to start. In business, you will probably find something described in that chapter which can be successfully sold in your community. By this plan, you can soon accumulate $1,000 or more for business capital.
The story of the cash register. Oh, nay, of the outstanding examples of American business successes is the National Cash Register of Dayton, Ohio. It is a monument to the genius of its founder, John H. Patterson. It is a demonstration of what a man with an idea and a lot of determination can accomplish, because probably no product ever made had such poor prospects for success as the cash register when it was introduced in 1884 by Patterson. That it was a useful invention no one denied, but because its value depended, so it seemed, upon the assumption that a businessman's employees were dishonest, it encountered terrific opposition from retail clerks. Omar Patterson's success was due in a large measure to taking what seemed to be an insurmountable objection and turning it into a reason for buying cash. Register salesmen were taught to turn the opposition to their advantage by pointing out to employers that when they put temptation in the way of their clerks, they shared the guilt of any clerk who pilfered the cash drawer. They brought the issue to the proprietor of the business by pointing the accusing finger at him rather than at his clerks. And as so often happens, once the right approach to the selling problem was found, the business began to grow. Even to this day, the leadership which this great company enjoys in the field of selling all over the world can be traced to its policy of turning objections into reasons for buying. In the words of a famous cash register salesman, Sewell, "Your man with the weapons he hands you." John H. Patterson did not invent the cash register. His early experience had been in the coal business. When he was 40 years old, he came to Dayton and paid $6,500 for the controlling interest in the National Manufacturing Company, which held basic patents on a cash register. It was a crude device that functioned by punching holes in appropriate columns on a strip of paper. There seemed to be no demand for the machine at all, and Patterson's investment in the enterprise came to be a standing joke in the community. In fact, Patterson's old associates made so much fun of the cash register, he offered the seller of the stock a bonus of $2,000 to release him from his contract. However, the seller wouldn't take it back as a gift. When his offer was refused, Patterson made up his mind that he would go into the business and make it a success. Perhaps it was fortunate that Patterson knew nothing about manufacturing, for if he had, he probably would not have touched the proposition. He would have known the difficulties of running a business without an established demand for the product. But Patterson didn't know that it couldn't be done. In December 1884, he changed the name of the concern to the National Cash Register Company, and from then until his death at 78, he slept, ate and drank cash registers. No one else could see a future for cash registers, but he refused to change his vision just because others could not see ahead. He started absolutely from scratch. He had to improve the cumbersome old machine, he had to find and develop a market, he had to create advertising to sell his product, he had to develop salesmen to do the selling. One might say that he invented modern salesmanship because until that time most selling was just order taking. By 1888, the company was beginning to make itself a power. It weathered the panic of 1893 and later depressions. Patterson worked day and night against almost insurmountable odds. There were times when, had he admitted to himself the possibility of being bankrupt, he would have failed. He wouldn't recognize failure. He could not fail. By constantly improving his product, his sales methods, and his manufacturing facilities, he built up in Dayton a worldwide business that has earned millions of dollars for the Patterson family. It shows what a man with an idea and a lot of guts can do.